On our first visit, it was simply curiosity that took us to Indonesia. I remember an Indonesian party long ago and talking with Indonesian friends about their country. But Indonesia is inexplicable. We were no closer to a clear picture until Sirigar from Sumatra said rather defiantly, "You might call us an underdeveloped country or a developing country, whatever you like, but what you will find is a green land full of smiling children." And that's good enough for me. A handful of those many smiling children opened this program. They sang for us with the help of their father in the well-loved garden of their family compound. The earth was dark and packed hard, not a blade of grass, but frangipani, bougainvillea, hibiscus and roses bloomed. There were coconut palms, breadfruit and banana trees, and a dark green lemon tree with fruit as large as coconuts. And along the western boundary ran a swift-flowing, gurgling stream. The song the children sing is one chanted to induce trance in little dancing girls before dancing the sangyang, the virgin trance dance. The words were in the Balinese language, and translated they are, "Get up, begin to dance. We hear the sad playing of the flute outside." Who blows the flute outside? He is called Igusti Nura Jambe Pamuchatan. The island of Bali was our first stopping place in Indonesia. We stayed for several days dodging the traffic at Denpasar, then moved on eagerly to the country. We travelled in a small truck with benches at the back. There was our mound of luggage, and several Balinese women had brought along the large round baskets they carry on their turbaned heads. A bundle of hens, small and brown and tied by their legs, gazed mutely from the corner in which their basket had been thrust. A large fish lay for a while along the seat. Juices oozed from him to a puddle on the floor, and we sat amongst the baskets and produce as Rio hurtled headlong into green hills and sunshine. There was rhythm in the movement, from lush forest to shining paddy fields, to villages with houses hidden behind mud walls. Our spirits soared like the coconut palms. Now when I think of the Balinese countryside, I think of the suling, the bamboo flute, and I think of Raka the flute player, who was known as Raka Suling. For the music he makes evokes the forests and the mountains that hide witches and Raksasas, the ancient demons. Raka makes his own flutes, which, like all Balinese instruments, come in pairs, male and female, with a quarter tone between pitches, the male being the higher voice. He uses a circular breathing technique, similar to that of our Australian didgeridoo players. Here is Raka. As he plays, he sits cross-legged on a mat on the floor. The music of Bali may be traced to the courts of Java, and from there to ancient India and China. It's developed over centuries in a most distinct and individual way. Over the years, instruments have been modified, transformed and created to produce brilliant and dramatic sound. The character of the music is lively, very rhythmic, and like the Balinese people, full of colour, grace and beauty. The music is built on 5 tones, and I was excited to discover these are linked with the gods of the 5 directions, north, east, south, west and centre, that each god has a mystic colour and a sacred syllable, and from these syllables come the tones of the Pelog scale, the name given to the Balinese scale. There exists a simple form of notation, each tone having a separate symbol and a separate name. Just as we Westerners have do, re, mi, fa, so, the Balinese have a scale, dong, deng, dung, dang, ding. Here Raka demonstrates.
This the every music all Bali only 5 tone. Dong, dang, dung, dang, ding. Ding, dang, dung, dang, dong. Dong, dang, dung, dang, ding. Ding, dang, dung, dang, dong.
Raka is a good example of the Balinese farmer who is also an artist. He's happy in the rice fields, he often tells me, and just as happy playing music. Raka is a man of about 50 years of age. When the famous German musician Walter Spies, who was also an artist and naturalist, lived in Champuan, which is close to Raka's village of Ubud, Raka played in the Spies Gamelan, which is the orchestra. In those days he was just a little boy. But he remembers the famous foreigners who came to Bali, and one was Colin McPhee, the American composer. Raka had only 3 years of schooling, for education was hard to come by when he was a boy. But I studied music, he said, always music. He can play all the instruments of the gamelan, and also some of the more unusual Balinese instruments. We have a recording of Raka playing the gengong, which is similar to a Jew's harp, but made from a sliver of bamboo and a piece of string. The pitch is limited to 4 tones. This instrument too he makes for himself and for sale. Occasionally a group of gengong is used to accompany a hilarious frog dance, which is performed by children. The sound is extremely apt, as you'll hear. Perhaps the most important bamboo instrument is the one known as the tinklik. This instrument has 11 carefully graded bamboo tubes slung on cord in a wooden frame. The player uses 2 long rubber-headed mallets. A small orchestra of tinkliks is used to accompany the dance, the Joget Bumbung, a dance of flirtation. We saw this dance performed in a village of Sempidi near Denpasar. The stage is simply a rectangular area of bare earth marked out with tall poles on which hang oil lanterns. At one end of this area is a small tent with a curtain through which entrances are made. The players in the gamelan sit cross-legged behind their instruments. a dancer emerges. She moves with small steps and she places her feet gently. Her arms sway and her hands twist and flick like the hands of a Hindu priest performing sacred mudras. She's small and a vital figure. On her head is a golden winged headdress which holds an arrangement of blossoms and smoking sticks of incense. Her body is bound tightly in a cloth with a rich golden thread, and the cloth or kain around her thighs is patterned in gold. Her thick black hair hangs in a tail to her hips. Its whole length is starred with frangipani blossoms. As she dances, the girl's hands have a backward curve like the curve of a pagoda roof, and that is repeated in the curve of her back and the upward curve of her toes. In fact, she has a series of graceful undulations which blend perfectly with the music and the movement of the dance. The boys and young men of the village crowd close around the dancing area. They jostle and nudge one another like yokels anywhere. They jeer a little at the dancer because they see her as just a village girl dressed up. But when she looks directly at her audience, and dances close along the line as though inspecting them, the boys give a little like grass before a breeze. She dances round the stage, looking outward, and circles again, and the audience ripples before her. She stops. The boy in front of her shrinks back, but his friends push him forward again. She taps him lightly with her fan. He shambles on stage. The dancer ties a sash around his middle. Then, as though the sash has transformed him, he raises his bashful head, looks into the girl's eyes, and they dance. The joghead is a dance of flirtation, as I said, and is considered frivolous. The boy makes suggestive passes, and the girl deftly thwarts him with the taps of her fan. 3 girls danced at Sampidi, each a little older than the last, and they called on many young men. Because I was the only European male present, each dancer, out of politeness I suppose, made a point of tapping me with her fan. And as I stepped out, all the smaller boys jeered and cheered in a friendly way. I know they saw me as just a white-faced, middle-aged European failing in an ungainly way to dance like a Balinese, but somehow, seen from the inside, I was a Balinese dancer, and I was lithe and young, and I was dancing with the girl I loved.